just going.
Okay.
I'm here with Pedro Rivas from Houston Latino Film Festival.
Hello.
Yeah, there he is. And, one of the things that we've talked about, especially after the last time we did this, after we'd stopped recording, we talked about Westerns.
Yep.
And I didn't know you were a Western guy, man.
Yeah, I grew up watching them with my dad.
Yeah.
Whether it was maybe some Westerns from Mexican cinema, but what really caught my attention were the Clint Eastwood Westerns, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Hang 'em High, High Plains Drifter, Pale Rider, big Clint Eastwood fan. And yeah.
Do you have like a kind of the first Western that you saw that really left a mark?
Probably the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. And over the years, you just kind of always been a genre you come back to, or?
Yeah, like I was really happy when there was a remake of True Grit, 310 to Yuma, The Proposition.
Okay.
There were these Westerns that were coming out, so I felt like they were going to make like a comeback, because there's a big difference between, like, I guess with the Italian Westerns or spaghetti Westerns and American-made Westerns.
Yeah.
And that's something I took note of again when we were watching, or when I watched these
Really?
4 films that we're about to talk about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into the films, we're at that time of the year where you guys are preparing the next festival, right?
Yes.
So anything you want to talk about, just kind of mention maybe the goal of the festival or what it's looking like for this year. Anybody who hears this, I want them to go to check it out. If you're in Houston, if you're in Texas, if you're on planet Earth, come to the festival. But tell us about it.
So March will be our 8th annual Houston Latino Film Festival, March 20th through the 24th, 2024. So it should be easy to remember. And we are going to have films from Mexico, El Salvador, Portugal, Spain, a little bit of everything.
Okay.
And we're also going to have an art exhibition this year with artwork from Cuba. And we're also going to have some musical events every night in the gallery, which is something different from before. We typically only had like a musical event on opening night, and then maybe one more, and then maybe a DJ. But we're shooting for every night this time, and then we're going to end it all with an awards ceremony Sunday evening in the gallery.
Okay. Yeah. And the gallery, and that is here where we're actually recording this, the match. What is it again?
Midtown Arts and Theater Center, Houston.
That's right.
Yep, 3400 Main Street.
Yeah.
There's some construction, but there is a parking garage nearby with plenty of parking.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a great venue. This last several years, you've had it here in some form or another.
Yep.
And I feel like everybody that I've seen come through has enjoyed it. The presentation is nice. The facilities are nice. It's a great part of town. There's a lot of things going on. So,
yeah, the cool thing is you come, watch a movie.
Yeah.
Check out a musical artist. You get hungry, you can walk a block, less than a block. Right across the street. There's a bar. There's coffee shops.
Yeah.
Taco spots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot going on around here.
So, because I think that's something that, not to go too far into it, but like with the festival over the years, I feel like if people don't first kind of know about the festival, that's
Mm-hmm.
one thing. But if they've heard of it, but like, where's that at, or what part of town, or I'm not familiar, it's right here, kind of in the heart of the city.
Yep.
So people from all directions come this way. And I feel like it's always been a good time. Last year, you were able to let me come by and record a couple of things. And so I think we're going to do that again this year.
Absolutely.
We might kind of step it up a little bit, I hope. But
yeah.
I think it's going to be a good time. I'll be here. You'll be here. Dave, David, all the crew is going to be here.
Yep. And we're going to have even more filmmakers coming in this year.
Oh, great.
So looking forward to that.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll have great Q&As with everybody. We're going to do workshops.
Yeah.
Panel discussion. So, yeah, it'll be great. Just there's a lot more information on our website, latinofilmfestival.org.
Okay, sounds good. I'm looking forward to it. It's been fun to hang around and watch this all grow. So I feel like watching these films, and we can get into them, but they were a little bit of like a glimpse of an era that's gone in some ways. Like you talked about Westerns, like modern day Westerns, they don't look like this. They don't feel like this.
Yeah.
Even the types of stories, not necessarily the same types of stories.
Yeah.
But I wanted to specifically look at these films. And so if I'm right, you haven't seen these either, right? These films, these 4 films, or you had seen them?
I had only seen 2, but a long time ago, to the point where I needed to rewatch them.
Right.
I wouldn't have been able to go based on memory.
Yeah. And hey, look, sometimes I do that. It's like, it's kind of new because I saw it like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You know? So I wanted to really visit, for the first time for me, this era, this early era of Westerns, starting with Stagecoach, 1939, going all the way to, was it High Noon? Was that the most? No, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
Yes.
1962.
Yep.
To me, that doesn't seem so far away in terms of time, like in film history, I guess. But if you put the numbers together, like 1939, that's going on 90 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, you're right.
So it was interesting to look at this, and not just like filmmaking and the style of the way things were done, but even the types of stories they were trying to tell. Stagecoach in particular, I felt like, I mean, you could tell me how you see it, but there were parts of it, because we're introduced to these different characters as they are, I guess they're all kind of riding together under this, I don't know if it's a threat, but there's like this presence of Geronimo and being out in the frontier, and you learn a little bit about these different characters along the way. It's like, oh, I feel like I've seen that more recently. And you've seen new iterations of that type of story. Like people kind of stuck together and
on a journey together, and but there's the fear of something dangerous that'll be there.
It's a little bit of like road ship tropes that it's playing with, but of course this is 1939, so I don't think those tropes had even existed at this point.
No, it was probably during, or if not during, what created the cowboy and Indian kind of.
Yeah, that was something to me, that seeing it presented this way in this film and knowing that it was made so long ago, like, you know, it's a different time now. So there was some part of it where I'm like, I don't know about this representation, the way, not only Apache, but even the Mexican characters in here. It's like, is this, like, this film wouldn't be made this way today, I think.
You know, you'd think so, but then I don't know if you saw The Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
No, I haven't seen that.
It was a good film, collection of short films, basically. But one of them dealt with cowboys and Indians. And I saw some people had a couple things to say about it online. I thought it was still a good story.
Okay.
You know, because some of that stuff happened.
Sure, yeah.
You know, it's just, I guess it could be said the same of when you're telling a film or story or the genre of cops and robbers.
Yeah.
But then maybe you want to tell the side of the robber story. You know, what's led him to that? What's going to make him make that choice? Or what's his perspective altogether? And so when watching Stagecoach, we have no perspective at all of the Indians, why they're doing it. We just know they're the danger. And that's the thing, you know, over time, eventually there was a film made in the 90s titled Geronimo.
Sure.
So, you know, then we get his whole side.
That's right.
In perspective, you know, or Dances with Wolves or other films that kind of, you know, over time, I think filmmakers in Hollywood have gotten better about it.
Yeah.
Still can't deny that, you know, sometimes it happened.
The thing that I see is, like, when it comes to storytelling or filmmaking specifically, is the danger can be that you draw too distinct of a line or paint too too strong of a picture in one way versus I guess a little more balanced. Of course, here it's like this story. It is about the people, the main characters, and so adding the element of this outside threat, it just raises the stakes, which I understand. It makes it more interesting. So anyway, also in this film, a young John Wayne, I feel like, who I think we talked about it, outside of an episode, but, I'm not sure how I feel about John Wayne, like as an actor necessarily. I understand he's like a presence, like an icon of Hollywood and Westerns, but I never was sure if I thought he was a good actor or not, just from what I had seen. And it admittedly was not a lot, right? And watching this film, I was kind of surprised. I mean, he plays a character called the Ringo Kid, which, I mean, I had to look it up because I'm like, he doesn't look like a young man.
Right.
He's like 32 years old.
I had to look it up too. I was like, hold up, how old is he? They keep referring to him as the kid.
Yeah.
And apparently this was the film that made him famous too.
That's kind of where I was like, oh, okay, this is important here in a timeline, and including the other films we'll talk about. But to think, well, this was people's first introduction, like big introduction to John Wayne and the presence he kind of brings to the film, his character, I guess.
Yeah.
I could see that. I could be like, okay, this is a little bit of a star-making role. He's kind of got the swagger, and I don't want to say he necessarily saves the day, but he brings a whole nother element to everything on top of all these other characters. I don't know if it necessarily changed too much in my opinion. I mean, what's your, like on John Wayne?
He definitely brought, so I guess I could start when I first watched Westerns.
Yeah.
None of them were John Wayne.
Okay.
And when I would come across his films, I didn't like them. They were kind of boring to me. But I mean, I was, I don't know, maybe middle school.
Okay.
And so I think I had already liked my characters moody, quiet, loner types. And I don't know, I felt John Wayne talked too much. I didn't really like his accent. His accent just being,
sure,
Texan or Southern.
Yeah.
But I got older and rewatched some of his films, and I kind of started getting a bigger appreciation for him, because it's kind of like, the films that made Clint Eastwood famous with Sergio Leone.
Okay.
He brought the whole, man with no name, quiet, tough guy persona, and made a whole genre out of that. And John Wayne kind of did that. I don't know anyone else who can be John Wayne when I think about it. He's got the whole, we'll say there, Pilgrim, I
got some about that later.
The way he talks, and even the characters, he might be the same person in all his films, but so was Clint Eastwood,
Yeah. And they do kind of play a version. I don't know if it's a version of themselves, but they play a version you recognize.
Yeah.
I mean, you extend that even to today, like Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
He kind of still plays Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible.
Yep. Yeah.
Or maybe not the real Tom Cruise, but a version that you recognize from another film.
Yeah.
Kevin Costner, similar type of thing, and in some ways, I think that's good for an audience because you kind of know what to expect. But I think there's I don't know, there's a value to being able to show to do like a Gary Oldman. It's like, oh, this next, I didn't even recognize him in this other film versus that film.
Right.
So it was an interesting look for me to see John Wayne like in a big kind of breakout role and not have any of the history that comes after it.
Right.
I mean, I'm trying to think, as I was watching these films, I tried to think, was there a single John Wayne film that I had seen in its entirety? And I can't think of one. I've seen parts like the original True Grit. Was it The Shootist? Was that one that he was in?
That's one of his.
So I over the years, I've caught clips or parts of it back when you will watch things on cable or whatever. So to like sit down and just kind of really focus on, okay, here's a moment where this guy was it. This was, I don't know, pick a young actor right now that's hitting, and this was his moment.
Yeah. I liked it overall.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Is this one you had seen?
No.
No. Okay.
No. This was my first time watching it.
Okay.
And I have a different appreciation for John Wayne now.
Yeah.
Because I see what he stands for.
Okay.
Integrity, honesty,
Yeah.
tough guy, but with a soft heart.
Right.
And I like that he had the opportunity to, I guess, run away and be free, but he gives that up to stick with his principles.
Right.
I got to get this thing done.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to go to jail after.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the stage, the whole scene, when they're running from the Indians as well.
Yeah.
It was crazy. I was kind of like trying to figure out how they did some of the stunts, some of the action.
That's the thing. I had to look at all of these films with that eye too of
this is
just
1939.
technical,
Yeah.
The craft that had to go into it. And and you can see the progression. If you watch all these films in a row or, kind of back to back, you can see just filmmaking wise how things changed over time. Like this one, you can tell like it still has that sense of like they were still kind of figuring out, like some of the stuff where they're shooting one angle and then the reverse angle looks kind of different. Like they didn't shoot them at the same time or in the same place or whatever. Some of the stuff on the horses where it's like, you're not riding a horse,
Yeah.
But I mean, you get the idea.
Yeah.
But you can see a little bit more of the rough edges in terms of the filmmaking.
Yeah.
But yeah, that sequence, I mean, it goes on for longer than I kind of expected.
Yeah.
And that was something that occurred to me too. I'm like, I feel like this was the moment where the whole Let's Play Cowboys and Indians came from. It just has that sense of
felt like it, yeah. Because it's the movie, the whole thing is leading up to that moment of being chased by and fighting off the Indians while they're in the desert. And I could see, I was trying to imagine 1939 being in a movie theater and just seeing that. Yeah. Whether you're a kid or an adult, and just being amazed. Yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty excited about it. I mean, there's a part of it where, again, I back away and I'm just like, yeah, but why do they always got to be the bad guys? But at the same time, like the craft of it is like, okay, this is pretty impressive for the time that it was made. Yeah. And yeah, some of the stunts, like some of the stuff with the horses, and look, at some point in time in film history or whatever, they didn't give a shit about horses, unfortunately. Sadly, but and I don't know if this film was one of those. It feels like some horses took some pretty hard dives in this, but but still, it's one of those that it has a real sense of energy and movement and speed that the rest of the film doesn't. It doesn't kind of tip you off like this is coming.
No, it's really slow in the beginning. Yeah. I that's why I said it leads up to it because. They were making pit stops here and there. Yeah. There's other events going on. And I'm kind of like, they keep missing some action that had just previously happened.
Yeah, it's like they were here yesterday or whatever. I was like, okay. I was pretty pleased. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I did enjoy it. So the next film, it was interesting. I didn't necessarily pick this because it also stars John Wayne, but because it was moving forward into the 40s. So Red River, 1948, also stars John Wayne. A surprise, for me, was seeing Montgomery Clift. So the setup is they are moving, what do we call that? Like the cattle,
the herd? Or
yeah, they're moving them like from, was it like Texas to... I think it's like Missouri or something like that. And they're going along the Red River.
Where were they going?
Well, all I have Montana? Here, I have written in my note here, Missouri.
Missouri? Okay.
and it's probably mentioned or it's said at some
It was
point.
Missouri, and because they keep telling him to stop in Abilene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I figured, right? They're going along the Red River, which
Yeah.
runs on the northern edge of Texas. But the idea being that they are moving this herd across, I don't know if it's open territory, but they're moving it for miles, right?
Yeah.
This cattle drive. Cattle drive. That's what I was trying to think.
Oh, okay.
And John Wayne, his character, Dunson, and Matt, the younger guy, is not his son, but it's kind of like an adopted
Like a foster son. Yeah, adopted son. Yeah.
because of some things that happened in the past that we didn't really find out until later in the film. And the idea of John Wayne kind of losing control of himself, like, he's pushing the guys, the crew, he's pushing all the hands so hard, like they're like hungry, they're tired, and he's trying to get there because he wants to get these cows turned over, make the money and all that. And
he's being stubborn about it.
Yeah.
Because people, they say there's a railroad by Abilene. You should go there. It's closer. It's safer. Because he just can't get anyone to convince him that the railroad's there, he wants to keep going. And yeah, which leads to not mutiny, but I guess people walking out. It doesn't affect him. He just wants to keep going forward.
Yeah.
Like, I was surprised. Like, he had guys who walked out chased down because they signed a contract. I was like, that's a lot of effort to be made.
Well, that's where I thought it was interesting, kind of a new turn on this, from something like Stagecoach, where he's kind of the hero and he's kind of upstanding and righteous in a way. But here it's like, I think this character thinks the same things about himself, but he happens to be wrong.
Yep.
Or, it's like how this kind of drive and pride can backfire on you, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I saw it, which was interesting. Like I said, watching them back to back, I was like, wait, we get two sides of the same coin maybe here.
Yeah. I like the dialogue in it as well. It was really smart because they made it match his character, or all of the characters, when they were already having some people desert them. Mm-hmm. And there was a moment where he has everyone working all night to wrangle the cattle that had gotten scared by some noise, and everybody's able to finally rest. And his son is like, hey, can you thank everybody? They're all hungry and tired and worn out. He goes, good. No one will desert us in the morning.
Yeah. I mean, that is a way to look at it.
Wow.
But and that was a part of it. So that's the part I remember, is that it's not clear like where that character, his son, is going to kind of step up, but it does happen, I guess, towards the end of the film or the third act or whatever, where he kind of takes over.
Yeah.
He's like, guys, you're coming with me. Leave the old man behind, basically.
Yeah.
And that's why I made a point about Montgomery Clift, because I feel like his performance, just his presence, it's so striking from some of the other actors, or just that style of acting. He kind of reminded me in a way of like a young James Dean or somebody like that, he's almost like he's in a different movie. Like the way he delivers things is a little more naturalistic, maybe not so John Wayne-ish, right?
Yeah, he felt like he had just arrived from the city.
Yeah.
And put on a hat.
Right.
And was just helping Dad.
Yeah.
With the cattle herd.
But it does make me interested to see other films that he's done, because this one, I felt like it was an interesting counterpoint to someone like John Wayne. Like, how do you act against that? You have to be kind of in a different movie. And I mean, we're still talking the late 40s here, but I mean, in the 50s and into the 60s for sure, there's a whole new way of filmmaking. There's a whole new way of acting that comes in. And looking at it now, like with all these years that have passed, it's like, oh, somebody here was onto something new.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to look at it with those eyes. But overall, even in the film itself, I like that it brings some dynamic, because it's not like, well, he's kind of his son and he's kind of his father figure in a sense. So he's going to
Yeah.
do whatever he says.
Because they never really called each other dad or son or
Right,
anything like
right.
that. Yeah.
But it's kind of established, like they always kind of seem together, like they're in the same scenes almost all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a different dynamic. It wasn't one that I really expected out of a film like this. I thought it was really going to be about the cattle drive and maybe some elements of action. I don't really remember anything, like no big set pieces kind of stood out that I can think of. I mean, you see them moving the cattle and all that. It is more about the back and forth between these two guys.
Yeah, and the way he's treating, I guess John Wayne's character is treating all his men.
Yeah.
And I think he finally stepped in at the right time when he was getting ready to hang some men
That's right.
for deserting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's crazy because the men, one of them, he's just saying everything that they felt and that they were tired of.
Yeah.
And they were like, I'm sorry we ran away. I wish we would have stayed, so I would have shot you. And he goes, but whatever, get on with it, shoot us. And John Wayne was like, nah, I'm going to hang you.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I don't know. I kind of saw a Captain Ahab quality there with the obsession of just, we got to keep going. We got to keep going to where I want us to, even though it's to the detriment of all of you.
Yeah, he's just, for some reason, there's some unknown thing that's kind of driving him.
Yeah.
I mean, other than, he's looking for the payday and all that, but there's something else going on there.
What's interesting, from the beginning of this film, I had an issue with the character, John Wayne's character, someone.
Okay.
Because he took that guy's land, the Mexican guy's land.
That's right.
He just felt that it was owed to him or something. Because he kills one of the guys who's a messenger, by the way, and you shouldn't kill the messenger.
Uh-huh.
And he tells the other messenger, like, go tell him what you just saw and that this is my land now.
That's right. Yeah.
And so right away, I'm kind of like, yo, what's up with this? Like, why is he the bad guy? I got confused at first.
It kind of does play out that way, right?
Yeah. And then there was another scene when they're getting ready for the cattle drive. And a bunch of cattle are getting mixed in. And one of the men comes and is like, hey, I think some of my cattle are in there. And he's ready to fight him.
Yeah.
And he just straight up says, yeah, I took some of them.
Yeah, he's like, brand them. Put my brand on them or whatever. Yeah.
So I'm really struggling with trying to like him, or trying to accept him as a good guy. I'm kind of confused.
Yeah.
So as the film goes on, I mean, he never does anything that's evil, but I'm like, he's not doing the right things.
But I mean, if you look at it in terms of like storytelling or conventions, I mean, he kind of is the antagonist throughout the film.
True.
There really is there's no other.
You're right, because on the journey, they're not fighting any outside forces, like you mentioned. Yeah, you're right. It's amongst themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's strange. He kind of starts as the protagonist and becomes the antagonist by the end. Where it's like, nobody wants anything to do with him. Yeah. Oh, wow. I guess I didn't even think about that. I so focused on everything that happens towards the end of the film, like when things turn. But yeah, you're right. They do kind of set it up of like, this guy's a little sketchy if you're paying attention.
Yeah. Because I don't know, he was trying to justify that the Mexican guy probably bought the land super cheap or took advantage of someone and he was like, now I'm taking it from him. I was like, I don't know if that makes it right.
Oh man. Yeah. So, I enjoyed it. It was different than I thought. I really had no, a lot of these films I didn't go into with any preconceived notion really, other than the next one. But all of these, I didn't watch a trailer or read too much of a description, just kind of like who's in them.
Yeah, I think this is the first time I saw a film by Howard Hawks. I didn't even know who that was until this film, and then I read up a little bit about him afterwards, and apparently he does really well with writing strong women.
It's been so long, but I know I've seen some of his films in the past, and he's kind of known for that kind of quick, fast banter and snappy dialogue.
Yeah.
Especially with, the female characters. Because I'm sure at the time it stood out. It's like, what is this?
Absolutely. Take a look at the love interest that John Wayne had in Stagecoach versus the love interest of the son in Red River.
Yeah.
And just how she just stands out on her own.
Yeah, yeah.
You
She
know,
kinda brings
even
it, yeah.
yeah. She's not scared.
Yeah.
She's defiant.
Yeah.
Yeah. But overall, yeah, I liked it as well.
The next one here, a few years later, 1952, High Noon, which was, there's something about a film with a simple and striking title. I mean, if you hit that title right, I'm in.
And the poster always stands out in my head as
That
well,
too.
where it'll say like High Noon, and it just shows, I think maybe like his legs with his holster.
Yeah, so something like that. I don't know why. It's just a squirrel reflex or something, but it's like a snappy title or a succinct title.
Yeah.
I'm down. Even Stagecoach, right? I was like, okay. This one, you know, I'm trying to remember where I saw this because I think it was on Amazon Prime. And I only say that because the streaming versions of these films sometimes, you know, depending on the platform or the quality or whatever, it can be hit or miss.
Yeah.
But this one, whatever version I watched, I think it was on Amazon. I mean, it looks amazing. Just, I gotta say that's like the first note I have here is that the cinematography, the quality of it, the angle, the camera work, all that just looks spectacular for a film of this time from 1952. That's over 70 years ago now.
Yeah.
So that alone, I was like, all right, I don't know what this film is necessarily going to be. I kind of have an idea, but the basic premise, though, for anybody who's not familiar, I feel like this is one that is like up there, like in terms of Westerns, right?
It's definitely up there, and I know it's a big favorite of American presidents.
Really?
At least.
Oh, of course, I see it.
Yeah.
Think about what it is, yeah.
Because I think, and I remember hearing about this a while back, and then I reread it again recently after rewatching the film. Reagan, maybe Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, Bush, they would play it at the White House.
Okay.
Apparently Clinton just liked the strength of the character as he's just not getting any help from anybody else or being told that what he's doing is wrong.
Yeah.
But he feels a moral obligation.
I mean, so I guess, you know, we could talk about the premise. If anybody's not familiar, it's new to me in a sense, but this marshal in, it's like I think it's like an unnamed town or whatever in New Mexico. He, at the beginning of the film, he gets married.
Yes.
So it's already like, oh, he's going through a little bit of a life change here.
Yeah.
Some priorities are getting changed around for him. But then he gets word that someone he like put him in prison
For murder.
at some point, right?
Yeah.
The guy's coming back to town. And his gang is kind of waiting to join him, and they're all going to ride in and come after him, basically. Like the way that the word kind of travels back to him,
Yeah.
it leads him on this mission to like get the town behind him because I got a big target on my back now.
Yeah.
But the film just is an exercise in building tension, I feel like.
The whole thing's in real time.
That's
The first time I watched it, I saw it, maybe I was in college. I remember I used to rent a lot of films from the library because you can get them for free. And that's where I first saw it. And then so this time around, I watched it on Amazon Prime.
okay.
And that's when I kind of noticed, I was like, oh, this is happening. Like the hour and a half of the film is the hour and a half of what's happening. Because every time he looks at the clock,
Yeah.
that's when I kind of started figuring it out. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a couple days.
Yeah.
He has until the end of this movie.
Right, right. The fact that you spend that whole, whatever it is, hour and a half of watching this character, like, go around town, talk to different people, like, hey, can you help me out? Can you, get my back? And everybody, for all of their own reasons, is like, no, like, I'm good. Like, we're leaving, actually.
Yeah.
It's And I can see that when you say, about presidents, because it is a thing of like one man who's got an elevated status or an elevated position, and yet he can't get anybody to buy in. He's got to make a hard choice or face some sort of adversity all on his own, whether it's actual or not. I mean, in terms of a president, it's like, well, you have a whole country behind you, but you can feel like I'm the only one in this, Here we see it like to the extreme. It's like he's literally the only guy involved here.
Yeah, because even his new wife kind of leaves him.
That's right.
She's like, I'm going to the train station, and I'm going to get on the train that the same killer is going to get off of to come kill you. That's the one I'm going to get on to get out of town.
That's wild.
Yeah, because I was like, hey, they're going to cross paths here. She's going to like have her ticket checked and everything as he's exiting.
It's something that when you kind of get a sense like this is where it's going, it's like, man, nobody's down to help this guy out. And yet he's staying strong, he's kind of keeping it together throughout, but it's like, man, the moment that it comes, like, how's this going to work? Like,
so I should just say, I didn't like this movie.
Really?
Yeah. And I didn't like Gary Cooper's character. And I agreed with the whole town.
Really?
Yeah, he was annoying. And the thing is, maybe I shouldn't just say annoying, but he wouldn't budge.
Yeah.
He wouldn't negotiate terms with anybody. Like, if you kind of listen to what a lot of the town were saying, they liked the other guy who was coming. He brought business.
Sure. Yeah.
He was probably bad.
Yeah.
But the sheriff, he didn't seem to have any friends.
That is,
and when that one deputy was like, "Hey, how come you didn't, recommend me?" And you're, when you're leaving, if you recommend me, I'll help you now. His life is in the balance, and he's like, "No." Yeah. He just got married a few minutes ago. No.
Yeah.
And so he's like, "Okay," and he leaves his badge and walks away.
Yeah.
So he's losing friends on his own.
Right.
And wherever he goes, he's being ridiculed. They're setting up coffins for him. Like, he's just not well liked. When I was watching it, and here's the thing, I didn't like it the first time.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're like, I was right before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because when I was rewatching, I was like, I think I remember not liking this movie.
Okay.
I didn't understand what the hype was.
Really?
And so as I'm watching it, it's the lead up. That's the hype. During that time. And I got that.
Yeah.
But I'm just, I don't know, man.
So, okay. This is interesting because of all these films at this point, right? The 3 films that we've talked about, this is the one I like the most.
Okay.
And only because it's a departure.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the other films, or the other 2 films we talked about, but in my mind, what most Westerns are.
Right.
Like, we're not out on the frontier. We're not riding horses everywhere. It's more about the moral dilemmas that, whether it's the marshal or the townspeople or his wife or whatever, all those moral choices that they have to make, and whether they're right or wrong, seeing them work through all that and seeing this marshal kind of get, turned down everywhere he goes. I mean, I agree. Like, the guy's kind of being a dick and, sticking to his guns to his own detriment.
Why is he protecting the town anymore?
Well, that's what I mean, right? Like, it's like, why doesn't he just ride off?
They're waiting for you to die.
Yeah,
These are the people you're protecting?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I agree with you. Like, the character and the way he comes off and the decisions he makes, I don't agree with those. But in terms of telling this story, I felt like, oh, this is different. For being sold or positioned as a Western, like it has a Western setting, I guess, but it doesn't feel like that kind of movie now. Like, we're looking at things in a different lens. You know what the film it kind of reminded me of? In a strange way, I guess, but 12 Angry Men. Because you're set with this one dilemma, this one situation, and you've got all these people that, whether he's asking them or he's seeing them turn away, you've kind of got this whole mix of people that they're making the choices based on what's important to them, their priorities, their interests, whatever. And he's the protagonist. We're supposed to be on his side. I think that's the way the film sets us up is like, well, you're supposed to want this guy to succeed, but yet you see all the reasons why.
They don't convince me.
Well, that's what I mean.
But no, I understand like where you're coming from and where I guess people who love it come from.
Yeah.
It just I was just never convinced that he should be sticking up for a town that didn't want him around anyways.
So here's what I'm saying though, is I liked it for that fact that it's like a departure, right? It does take a left turn in terms of where it falls in Western film history, I guess. I don't really necessarily like the way this character moves in the film. I also don't like the way it ends.
Yep.
Like,
didn't like that
total
either.
cop-out.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute. This guy's going to face down... It's 4 guys, right? It's the main guy.
Yep. One gets shot in the back.
Miller, and then his gang. Or whatever.
Yeah.
And the fact that, the wife comes in at the last second. Like, that's kind of cheap, right? So, that's what I'm saying. Like, I liked it in terms of, what it's trying to do. The way it gets there, I feel like we kind of lost something there.
Yeah. No, definitely. I don't know. I think because for me, I'm thinking because they were trying to make it a film where it's being told in real time.
Yeah.
I think that's why it suffered for me.
Okay.
There were certain things that maybe could have been thought out a little better.
Okay.
But I don't know. Maybe it's just a preference. For me as well.
Well, it's what you're looking for.
Gary Cooper just didn't seem tough to me. He just
that's another. That's one of those questions I had. Is like, how did this guy get to be marshal in the first place?
Right.
He doesn't seem like he's laying down the law.
Because I'm kind of like, did he get voted in? Because I don't.
and who voted for him?
Right. Everyone had regrets after, and I mean, when he gets into it with one of the bartenders, that I think he punches a guy.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, hey, you can't do that. And it's funny because the guy says, you have a gun and a badge, you can't do that. It's like, okay. And he agrees, like, yeah, nah, I shouldn't have. He says, when that guy, I forget his name, the one who's going to come kill him, we had money going, we had fun times. I was like, this sounds like the awesome guy of the group. And you infiltrated and got that guy kicked out of like the clique in high school or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I guess I was looking at it differently, and I think maybe it's just Gary Cooper. I didn't like his character. I don't. I don't mean I dislike Gary Cooper. I mean in this film, his character didn't feel like flesh. Like, why did he feel the obligation that he had to do this, and for what reason? And especially, it's like he's protecting a circle in hell that, like, hey, I think you're protecting people that might be as bad as this guy that's coming.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the whole town just sold him out.
I respected him when he finally threw the badge on the floor when he left. I was like, well, yeah, you should have done that a long time ago.
Right. It was like an hour ago. That should have been. Yeah, I can at least appreciate what it was trying to do.
Yes.
And, even I don't necessarily like some of the choices that the characters make. The filmmaking, and that's why I started with the beginning. It's like the filmmaking I feel like was pretty strong, at least compared to the other 2 we'd seen so far. Because that's where I was saying, like, you can see the growth and the evolution of what was being done, like the craft of it all.
But I can see it through the lens of, let's say, the American presidents who love it, or cinephiles. Like he was standing for something in the end that was right. Evil was coming, and he felt because of the star he wore,
right?
As
the duty of it. Yeah,
it's my moral obligation to stay and keep evil at bay, even if that's at the cost of my own life.
Yeah,
and for those, even though some of the townspeople maybe didn't like him, there were plenty of people that did like him, but they were scared.
Right.
And they just couldn't do it because they were scared. I mean, one guy who wanted to be with him.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And he was like, hey, man, all right, so I'm back. Where's the posse? And they're like, no posse. And he's like, oh, I got kids, man. I got a wife. And you should get out of town too, man.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. I was wondering like how you were going to feel about this.
I don't hate it. I don't put it up there. I appreciate it for what it was, though, for sure.
This next one, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, 1962, 10 years later now. Mm-hmm. So we're moving even further into history, film history. And I feel like this was one that I saw another leap, or like just in terms of the craft of it all, you see a little bit of a leap because this was one I had no real expectation, but I know Jimmy Stewart's in it, I know John Wayne's in it, and that's it. And the way the film opens, I didn't realize like, oh, this is like a framing device, like because I'm like Jimmy Stewart. I don't think he was this old in 1962. Yeah, because I'm trying to do the math. I'm like, because he looks old at the beginning of the film.
That's
and
right.
I'm like, wait.
The majority of the story is flashback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was already an interesting change or surprise for me. The idea that he plays a senator who goes back to Shinbone, that's the name of the town.
Yeah.
And he goes there for a funeral, even though it's not really explained to who. They say it's for Tom.
They say who it is, but
you don't know who that is.
They're wondering why has a senator come to our small town for one of the dead town members. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so the rest of the film, or majority of the film, it flashes back to what he wasn't even a senator yet. He was a...
I think he just got out of law school, maybe.
Right. So it's his, getting mixed up basically with...
Liberty Valance.
Liberty Valance, who... Lee Marvin. Wow.
Yeah.
I've only seen a few films with Lee Marvin, but the ones that I've seen, he's always the guy. I'm just like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think every scene he's in this film, I think he runs away with it, right?
He makes it pop for sure, yeah. He steals the show.
Because it's not just, well, he's the bad guy, he's the antagonist here, but he looks like he enjoys this. Like, I'm here to handle some business.
Yeah.
And so the thing was, as we're seeing like Jimmy Stewart, he plays Stoddard, and he has a run-in with Liberty Valance. He basically gets everything taken, right? And they kind of leave him out there.
Yeah.
And he ends up running into Tom, who it's never explained who Tom is, except at the beginning when that's the funeral they're coming home for. But then it's like, well, Tom is actually, it turns out, that's John Wayne. So when they get to the point where we do finally see John Wayne, I'm like, oh, okay, John Wayne's the guy that at the beginning, that was his funeral?
Right.
So now it's like you're setting up, okay, well, John Wayne's not going to make it to the end of this movie.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, how do we get there? And something about that's why I say like the storytelling takes a leap now. Because it's like, it's not a linear story anymore. So we kind of gave you the end.
Yeah.
So now we're going to watch how we got to that. And so to me, like watching that play out, watching Lee Marvin just chew up every scene. And Jimmy Stewart, I mean, look, the way you felt about Gary Cooper in the last film, that's kind of the way I feel about Jimmy Stewart in a lot of films I've seen him in.
Yeah.
I like a couple of things that I've seen, but...
I like Jimmy Stewart.
In this film, I just felt like, guy, you're going to 11, and it's not necessary. Like, he really comes in hot in some scenes.
Yeah.
And I get it. He's supposed to be someone who is upset or frustrated that these things have happened to him, and he can't... It's kind of like he can't stand up for himself in a way, and John Wayne...
But he's trying.
I know. And John Wayne is there to kind of push him in the right direction, to get him there.
He never backs down. And
sure.
He keeps trying. So, I mean, I like the movie. I'll start with that. This is my second time watching it. Actually, I read the short story in college.
Okay.
That's how I found out about, later on, that there was a movie about it. And I really liked the short story. And they also made a song about it. I don't know. I felt like John Wayne did really good in this one. This one made me a little emotional.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I felt like that the first time I saw it. Okay. And then the second time I saw it, again, because of the choices that are made by John Wayne's character, he's basically sacrificing his future, his life with someone he loves because she knows she'll be better off with Jimmy Stewart, his character, or Ransom, I think his name is. And you see it when he saves him and the self-destruction he goes through to the point of literally burning the house he's building for him and her down. Like it to me, I just saw that, like, that he's going to keep living for the sake of living, but the drive and the purpose are gone. And it's so that she can have a better life. She's going to learn to read. She's going to be with someone who's educated. Not that it should matter, but he sees what's happening between them.
So as you're saying that, like, it's dawning on me, like, I think I was watching this movie wrong. And it's not that I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed a lot of things about it, but I felt like there was something, it just wasn't sitting right. And as you're saying all that, I'm thinking, like, I was watching this movie thinking Jimmy Stewart is our main character. And I mean, if I just, the title of the movie.
The man who shot Liberty Valance.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so as you're saying, I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, if I watch it with that in mind, like, this really isn't the story about Stoddard and why he's coming home for a funeral. It's really about Tom and everything that he kind of sacrificed and gives up, whether you want to say it's for honor. I hadn't seen the film. I didn't watch it that way. But now that you're saying that, I'm thinking, like, damn, I need to watch this again with those eyes.
See, that's where the emotion comes from. Because I feel for Tom.
Yeah.
You know, I feel for what he's giving up.
Right.
And I guess, I just saw his character.
Okay.
And because then when they do the flashback within the flashback, when he tells... when he tells Ransom, like, how things really went down, and now you're obligated to me to make sure this town's going to be safe, which it ends up thriving. You know, Ransom's whole life is basically paved in gold because of this. Everyone thinks he shot Liberty Valance. Right. You know, he goes on to become a senator. He marries the woman he loves. Can I
ask though? You said you read the story first, right?
Yes.
When you read the story, did you see that coming? That, like, who really shot Liberty Valance?
No, okay. It's the same thing in the short story.
Yeah.
Because it's revealed.
Okay. Well, because I figure it's harder to see that coming when it's in text, right? Because in the film, I got to say, like, I felt like something's up here. Okay, yeah. So it's interesting
only
because you've seen it.
So I saw it coming because I read the story. I mean,
right.
So it's interesting, your perspective on it. Because even though I knew it was coming, I still felt they did really well with it.
It was one of those things. So here's the thing: when that scene happens, because it's like a nighttime thing. Yeah, they're out on, like, the street or whatever in this town, and Liberty Valance, like, he walks outdoors, out into the street, and Stoddard, Jimmy Stewart, he's out there, he's got a gun, and so you kind of figure, right, like, okay, it's going to happen now. Yeah, this is a showdown, but he doesn't want to do it, or not. He doesn't want to do it. But
he's afraid. I think he knows he's going to die.
Yeah, he's thinking, like, this is no contest. Yeah, this guy's going to kill me, and I'll try.
But I feel like we've been leading up to him never backing down.
Right. So there's a moment when that scene comes where I think, okay, this is not going to end well for him. But I'm thinking, and the whole time in my head, I'm like, the name of the film, right? The title of the film is like, okay, well, this is going to be his hero-making moment. But even when it happens, I'm like, in my mind, I thought, wait a minute, we're going to see, somebody was behind him or whatever in that moment. And it's like, he didn't actually do it. Like, he couldn't do it, or whatever it was. So when you show, like, in the way it plays out in the film, it's like, okay, Liberty Valance goes down, and that's it. Like, okay, he did it. It's only later when you see it from another angle, you're like, oh shit, I knew it. I knew something else was going on, but it's still the way it's done.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's the shortcut that you see in a film today,
Yeah.
Or in a TV show or whatever. It's like somebody's scared to shoot the bad guy and a shot goes off, but then it's like somebody that was behind them or off to the side or whatever. And it happens all in the same moment. And here, I think the fact that they let you sit with it, like this guy did it. Like he pulled the trigger. And it kind of fools you with like, he's a hero and he's deserved of it. But then you see like, no, it was actually somebody else who was the bigger hero and took the hit,
Yeah.
That was an interesting turn there. I feel like that's why I say like this one, I think it's like another level, man. It's doing some different stuff.
I mean, think about the amount of time they devoted to John Wayne going into the bar and getting drunk and just being very self-destructive.
Mm-hmm.
Poppy has to take him out, has to drive him back home.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jimmy Stewart's gone for maybe a good 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
We're focused on his transition to what he thought his life was going to be, and to just like, I just ruined my whole life for this guy.
Yeah.
But because I love this woman so much.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I got to watch it again. I got to watch it again with those eyes, with that in mind. Because, I really thought, well, this is Jimmy Stewart's film. And I kind of don't know what this character is doing. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like other characters, including John Wayne, Tom here, he's doing more, that character is going through a more interesting arc than our main character.
Mm-hmm.
Our main character is here kind of just pouting sometimes. And, that's where I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. I was trying to find other positives here.
And I get, and, it's like the cactus that's put on his coffin. That's the one he was growing in the house for his future wife that didn't end up being his wife. And look at the look on Jimmy Stewart's face, when he's told anything for the man who shot Liberty Valance, and he can't even smoke his pipe in peace anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just because that's why he's there in that town. He owes his whole life to Tom.
Right.
Everything great that's happened in his life to Tom.
And see, that's the thing, is like there is a portion of the film where it is about him. It's about him kind of getting the support of the townspeople, or they're basically selecting him to be go on that road.
But he walks out.
I know.
And what does it take for him? It takes the revelation.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, okay, so we're following him.
Yeah.
But it really is about
Tom.
what the other guy did.
Yeah.
And Tom.
I mean, it's about both characters, but it's just the results of how a life can be changed when, what's the famous quote? When the legend is fact, print the legend.
One interesting note here that I wrote down, I feel like this is where John Wayne's catchphrase or his tagline or whatever with Pilgrim must have come from.
That's what I was thinking,
because he says it like 4,000 times in this film.
He didn't say it in any other movies, right? Or at least not the other ones we saw.
I don't remember him saying it in those. Yeah. And I just remember over the years growing up kind of knowing who John Wayne is as a presence. Like that's part of his thing. Yeah. It's like Arnold with I'll Be Back or whatever. And it's like John Wayne, he always says Pilgrim at the end of a one-liner or a sentence or whatever. And in this film, he does.
Yeah.
And I really thought, wait a minute. I think this is where this was born. It's funny because at first, the first few times, I'm like, all right, that's, it's a little colloquialism or a little thing that he adds.
Does he say to everyone or just to Ransom?
Well, yeah, maybe that's a good point. Maybe he does only with
him. Because a pilgrim is someone I think sometimes can be viewed as a wanderer.
I kind of took it as a little bit of like a dig, like dude,
Mm-hmm.
like in the Western sense,
Right.
like dude. It's like you don't belong here. You're from the city, or you're
That's right, because Lee Marvin's character would call him dude.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So I was like, and of course that's a word that's taken a different life over the
Yeah.
years. But Pilgrim, like, it's kind of stayed where it is.
Yeah.
So it's weird to hear it used so much,
Yeah.
at least today. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I enjoyed all of these films really for different reasons. And what was that like, kind of going back to a film that you maybe had memories of, or maybe foggy memories of?
Maybe I even like The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance even more.
Really? Okay.
Because when I watched it years ago,
Yeah.
I thought, oh, that's a good movie. When I watched it now, and like everything I've been discussing about the life choices and all that, I don't think I thought about it that heavily back then.
Okay.
I think just now, and maybe it's because they were going to his funeral, and just looking at it from like, man, your life can change for whatever reason. And
Yeah, it's something that you thought you were in control of or deciding
yeah,
which way things were going. Turns out other factors, other people may have been a part of that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go further, you could be like, well, Tom probably could have married someone else.
Yeah.
Maybe he still could have had a decent life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you're sticking with the fairy tale
Yeah,
of what
yeah.
this story is trying to do,
Right.
and to the reader or the audience watching it, these things happen
Yeah.
in life.
Does this place anywhere like in top westerns for you? Or?
Absolutely.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I would say yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's probably one of my favorite by both Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I've got to do more here. I've got to do more westerns, and even these actors. I mean, I'm seeing some different sides, like whether it's John Wayne or even Jimmy Stewart. So getting a better feel like of the landscape of who's who and when things were hitting for people.
Yeah.
So all of these, it's been kind of enlightening, eye-opening, let's say. As far as westerns in general, I mean, do you find like any of these era of films that are more your thing or more later era stuff? Like, because I know really things totally changed in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, that's probably around more my era.
Yeah.
Because I do like American Westerns, but I like what Clint Eastwood and Sergio Leone brought to the genre, because they gave it a more real feeling.
Yeah, it feels gritty. And
You had people with dirty teeth and dirty skin, sun-baked.
There's like a weird kind of sweaty danger to it.
Yeah, and you watch all four of these films, everyone's clean cut.
Yeah.
Everyone's freshly showered, it looks like.
That was a couple
They have the whitest teeth.
There were a couple of moments, I think it was in Red River, where I was like, I don't know, that gear he's got on, the clothes or the hat or whatever, it looks like they just bought that like the week before. But you're supposed to be out on the range.
Right? Yeah.
I like that, the push to more, I guess, authentic or realistic depictions, whether
Yes.
the conditions or the lifestyle or whatever. So for me, yeah, it kind of falls in like that later era. I mean, even into the 90s, when we get into things like Dance of the Wolves or Unforgiven, I feel like that's where they're really pushing not only the types of stories, but the way it's depicted. We got to do another one of these.
Yeah, man, for sure. There's plenty of westerns out there, even modern day ones. Ty West made a western. Ty West, the guy who did
X and what was the name of it? Do you remember? Recently?
A while back. It was with Ethan Hawke, and John Travolta played the bad guy.
Yes, this sounds familiar.
It's actually pretty good. I wasn't expecting it to be. I forget the name of it.
This sounds familiar. I think I'd probably put on my list at some point. Because Ty West, I just in the last couple of years since I've been doing this, I really picked up on what he's doing. With
He just
the
did
horror
horrors.
films.
Yeah, and out
Yeah.
of nowhere, he just pumped out a Western.
Yeah.
It was
yeah.
actually decent.
All right. So we got some more to add to the list.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fun, man.
Yeah.
I've been Pedro, thanks for doing this.
Oh,
by
thanks
the
for
way.
inviting me again.
Yeah, let's do some more westerns, man.
Yeah,
Or
for
or if
sure.
you have some other thing, is like some other genre or some other whatever.
Yeah, no, I can keep doing Westerns or whichever. I'm down. Yeah,
Okay.
This is fun.
All right, cool, man. So look, let's get out of here because I'm
Yeah.
getting hot. The sun has moved, and I'm sitting in the sun now.
Probably should have drawn the shades.
Nah, it's all good. But I'll see you back here. And if you're listening to this, and if you're in the Houston area, like I said, come on out. Come check out the Houston Latino Film Festival. 8 years now.
8 years.
8 years. So anyway, that's us for now. And, like go to filmstreak.com. You can find other episodes. I still have the IMDb list. I try to keep all of these up there. But, like I said, my list keeps growing.
Yeah.
It's like I'm up to 1,300 to watch,
Yeah.
like that are ahead of me. I'm like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get through this. But yeah, come out to the festival, go to filmstreak.com, and go watch something new.